I remember the exact moment I realized something was genuinely wrong. Not wrong like, oh, the news is bad again. Wrong like, the thing I thought I understood about the world was built on an assumption that was never actually true. And once I saw it, I couldn't explain how I'd missed it for so long. And the strange part is, I wasn't reading some conspiracy theory. I wasn't down a rabbit hole at 3 a.m. I was just paying attention, normally, to normal things. And something clicked that I really wish hadn't. Here's where it started for me. I was watching two things at the same time, completely unrelated, or so I thought. One was footage of a physical conflict somewhere. Soldiers, buildings, the kind of imagery we've all seen enough times that we've almost gotten numb to it. And next to that, on another tab, I was watching something completely different. A social media platform, a trending topic, a narrative forming in real time about that same conflict. And the thing that hit me wasn't the conflict itself. It was how different the two things looked. Same event, completely different reality depending on where you were watching. And I thought, okay, that's always been true to some extent. Media bias, different perspectives, nothing new. But then I kept watching, and I realized it wasn't just bias. It wasn't just spin. The two versions weren't just slanted differently. They were constructing completely different worlds, different villains, different timelines, different causes, different facts, and both of them were being consumed by millions of people who were completely certain they were the ones seeing clearly. That's when the uncomfortable question showed up. Which one was I? Because here's the thing nobody wants to admit. When you're inside a narrative, when you're consuming information that confirms what you already half believe, it doesn't feel like propaganda. It feels like finally someone is telling the truth. It feels like clarity. It feels like waking up. That feeling of waking up is exactly what makes it work. Maybe you've felt this. You share something, you feel certain about it, and then someone pushes back, and instead of reconsidering, you just think they're brainwashed. Because your sources feel more real. Your version feels more honest. Everyone always thinks that. Every single side of every conflict in history has thought exactly that. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The people who are most confident they've seen through the manipulation are very often the most thoroughly inside it. But let me tell you what actually changed my thinking, because it wasn't a debate. It wasn't someone convincing me with better arguments. It was noticing a pattern. I started tracking, loosely, just paying attention, how information moved, not what the information said, how it moved, who was amplifying what, when things went viral, what emotions they triggered, and what those emotions made people do. Share, react, argue, feel certain. And what I noticed was that the most viral pieces of information across every side, every platform, every political leaning had one thing in common. They weren't the most accurate. They were the most emotionally activating. The ones that made you feel something urgent, something that needed to be shared right now, something that made you feel like you'd be complicit in something terrible if you didn't act. Bro, that's not information. That's a weapon, and someone is designing it that way. Here's the part that most conversations about this skip entirely, and I think they skip it because it's the most unsettling part. The people doing this, and when I say people, I mean governments, intelligence agencies, private actors, political operations. They are not dropping bombs. They are not moving troops. They are sitting in rooms, running accounts, designing content, and shaping what millions of people believe is real, what they're angry about, who they think the enemy is, what they think is worth fighting for. And it's not new. Information warfare has existed forever. Propaganda has existed forever, but something changed. And this is where I think we genuinely entered different territory. The scale became infinite. The targeting became surgical. And the cost became basically zero. You don't need a printing press. You don't need a radio tower. You need accounts. You need content. You need an algorithm that rewards engagement. And the most engaging content is almost always the most divisive. The algorithm doesn't care if it's true. It cares if you reacted. And if you reacted, it shows it to more people, and they react, and it spreads, and suddenly a manufactured narrative is inside the heads of 10 million people who each believe they found it themselves. And this is where it connects to something that I think is actually the core of it. Think about what a traditional war needs to accomplish. At its most basic level, it needs to break the enemy's ability to function as a unified force, destroy their infrastructure, demoralize their population, create internal divisions that make coordinated resistance impossible. Now think about what's been happening in every major democracy for the last 10 years. Infrastructure of trust destroyed. People don't trust institutions, media, government, science, each other. Internal divisions extreme. Families split. Communities fractured. People who used to disagree now treat each other as enemies. Coordinated collective response to anything nearly impossible, because you can't coordinate with people you've been convinced are your enemy. Guys, I'm not saying this to be dramatic, but when you lay it out like that, it looks less like a cultural moment and more like a campaign that worked. And here's the thing I had to sit with for a long time after I started seeing this pattern. I participated in it, not intentionally, not maliciously, but every time I shared something that made people angry, every time I engaged with content designed to outrage, every time I treated someone who disagreed with me as a threat rather than a person, I was a node in the network. I was doing the work for free. I was spreading something that someone, somewhere, designed to be spread. That's a strange thing to realize about yourself, that you thought you were informed and engaged and paying attention, and you were actually just useful. And the worst part is, I still don't fully know how to opt out, because the information environment is the water we're all swimming in. You can't just stop watching things. You can't just go off the grid and remain a functioning person in the world. You have to make decisions using information that you can't fully verify, from sources with interests you can't fully see, through platforms with incentives that have nothing to do with your well-being. But here's the shift that happened for me. And this isn't a solution. I'm not going to pretend it is. But it changed something. I stopped asking, "Is this true?" as the first question, and started asking, "Why am I seeing this right now?" Not what does it say? Why is it in front of me? Who benefits from me believing this? What do they want me to feel? What do they want me to do with that feeling? Because the truth is, real information doesn't usually need you to react immediately. Real information doesn't usually come packaged with exactly the emotional charge needed to make you share it before you've thought about it. Real understanding of complex situations doesn't usually make you feel more certain. It makes you feel less certain, more aware of what you don't know. Certainty in a complex world is almost always a product. Someone made it, someone distributed it, and you received it and mistook it for your own conclusion. I think about this when I look at where we actually are right now globally. And I don't mean the conflicts you can see on the map. I mean the architecture underneath them. The fact that populations in different countries have been so thoroughly sorted into opposing realities that they can't agree on basic facts, let alone cooperate on anything. The fact that the people who are supposed to be on the same side spend most of their energy fighting each other. The fact that genuine threats, things that would require collective response, are constantly being buried under the noise of manufactured outrage about things that mostly just make people feel tribal. That's not an accident. It's too consistent to be an accident, and I don't think there's one group pulling all the strings. That's not how it works. It's messier than that, more distributed. But distributed chaos is still a strategy when your goal is to prevent someone from thinking clearly. The thing that lingers with me, the thought I can't quite let go of, is this. Every generation that lived through a major historical catastrophe had people inside it who thought they were paying attention, who felt informed, who thought they understood what was happening, and most of them were wrong about the most important things. Not because they were stupid, because the information they had was curated by people with interests. We are not different from those people. We have the same brains. We have the same psychological vulnerabilities. We have the same instinct to trust the version of reality that makes us feel like the good guy in the story. The only difference is the machinery got faster, the targeting got more precise, the volume got turned up to a level that's basically impossible to think through without effort. And most of us aren't making the effort, including me most of the time. I'm still placing blocks, still thinking about it. I don't know what that adds up to. I just know I can't look at a trending topic the same way anymore. And I'm not sure if that's wisdom or just a different kind of confusion. Maybe both.